Good morning. Come on in. Get your coffee. You know it's time. You can't wait. Do any of you watch tapes to help you get to sleep? People keep telling me I should do some ASMR. You should look it up if you don't know what that is. It helps you get to sleep. Good morning, good morning. Well, we have a lot to talk about this morning. Everybody have their coffee? You don't need a reason for coffee. Yeah, look up ASMR. Apparently some people use my periscopes to put them to sleep at night, which I think would actually work. ASMR is, I don't know what the letters stand for, but the idea is it's somebody talking in a very low tone, so you can't necessarily make out any of the words. And they might be doing something like putting on makeup or fussing with, preparing dinner or something. So you hear little background noises. And the idea is, it's really a sort of a cool concept. The idea is that for whatever reason, humans are wired so that when they're around the sound of other humans just doing ordinary things that humans do, but not so loud that they have to really pay attention, just sort of background noise, that we really like that. And I think the reason, this is just a hypothesis, I think the reason for that, and by the way, I've tried this, I use Periscope myself sometimes to fall asleep. I'll just find somebody who's talkative, and I prefer a female voice, so I just randomly pick anybody who's talkative and has sort of a low voice, and turn the volume down so it just sounds like, sort of like that, and just leave it on, and you'll fall asleep right away. And here's why I think that's the case. Again, just speculation. I think that humans are wired so that we're always on the alert for predators and enemies. And it's hard to go to sleep if your brain is wired to stay awake to look for enemies. So what is the one thing that would help you in that situation? Well, what would help you is if there were other humans who were awake and were going to stay awake so that you could sleep, because the other humans are watching out for the danger and they'll wake you up if they need to. So I have a feeling that just hearing the sounds of other humans, or at least one human who's awake and isn't bothering you too much, it's just, just talking in the background, gives you the feeling that somebody's watching, and then you can go to sleep. I would bet we've evolved to be more comfortable when other humans are in the area. Yeah, and apparently if you do it right, if you're a good ASMR artist, you can cause a tingle. People will get kind of a tingle in their, like scalp in the back of their neck and stuff. It's a well-known phenomenon. Anyway, if you haven't heard of ASMR, you will, because just my brief exposure to it, it's really powerful and it's very simple. Anybody can make a little tape that goes, well, I say it's simple, but there are some people who are superstars at it. So apparently some people do it better than others. You do this nightly and it works. Podcasts do the same thing. Yeah, the trick is you have to turn it down so you're not really hearing the voices and the words. I always had that as a kid. All right, let's talk about the so-called Miss Piggy, which unfortunately for her is now her nickname for the rest of her life. I don't know if she planned on that. Bob Ross, the painter, yeah. I have a hard time getting engaged in the whole Miss Venezuela thing. I think it's a good example of, it seems like everybody is despicable once you dig in a little bit. We'll never have another president again who's not despicable, because once you get below the surface, and you can make up stuff if you want to, it's just everybody's terrible. So anybody who comes out in favor of a candidate is going to get ripped apart these days because there's surely something in their past that they did that they wouldn't want everybody to know about. LBJ was much worse to women. Well, you have to time adjust. So the other thing that people don't always stop to do is remember that 30 years ago, everybody was a certain way. And the test would not be, did you do something 30 years ago? And I'm not talking about just Trump. I'm talking about anybody. The test would be, have you improved in 30 years? If you're the same fucking asshole you were 30 years ago, then yeah, we got a problem. And that's pretty relevant. But if 30 years ago you were kind of a sexist and kind of a racist and kind of a jerk, but you grew, you changed with the times, is that the same problem? I don't know. Isn't the whole point of being a human is that you start as a baby and you can't do anything but shit and eat and cry, and then for the rest of your life you try to improve? At some point your body won't improve, and at some point your mind won't improve much. Toward the end, we hope. But at least you could improve in character, right to the last day. One of my biggest heroes was a guy named Raj. He lived to about 100, 98, I think. And I was friends with him his last, 20 years of life. And he was like the most perfect human. He had just achieved some level of enlightenment. But if you asked him what he did when he was a young man, he was in the military during World War II in India. And some bad shit happened then, like really bad shit. And he was also a police captain, I think, for a while in India. And again, if you're a police captain in India in the, 40s or whatever he was, some bad shit happened. But I didn't judge him by any of that, because in the last 20 years of his life, when I knew him, he'd evolved into almost this pure Buddha-like character who was just like pure love. He just sort of radiated it. So I would say if Trump was a jerk 30 years ago, what's that mean? Probably doesn't mean anything. It means that everybody was a jerk 30 years ago. Late Friday news, drop of negative Hillary news. It doesn't happen on late Fridays, does it? Because late Friday is when you wouldn't want something to happen. Or is that only if there's a holiday over the weekend? Maybe it's the opposite, because weekends are big news times. Trump took the bait. He always takes the bait. Yeah, it's hard to get worked up about a situation where a woman joined a contest to be judged on her looks, and then someone judged her on her looks. And that's what we're talking about. Now, the fact that the way Trump talked about it was offensive is because everything he says is just a little too honest, right? Yeah, she signed a contract. I'm giving tons of hope to Trump supporters. Why? Well, I think what I'm doing is just trying to describe the situation through a different filter. And if that has an impact on the real world, so be it. But having more information should not make the world worse. It's that he can't let it go. Well, here's the filter I would put on that, the so-called Miss Piggy situation. If it looks like he can't let it go, I think you should understand that he's now winning with it. Meaning that when it started, he was on the defense. And you could argue, hey, why is he being defensive? But he does, it's his strategy to be defensive, or at least to fight back. Let's not call it defensive. That's subjective, judgmental wording. He fights back against everything because that's his brand. His brand is nobody's going to push him around. So when they try to push him around, he pushes back. Now, at the moment, if you're asking why is he still talking about it, the answer is because he now has a winning hand. Now that it has been revealed that her character is has some questionable elements in the past, more than that, I guess, it makes Clinton's judgment look terrible for bringing her into the fight. So at this point, he's just on offense. And if you're asking why is he still on offense, then you don't understand what it is to be in a presidential election. So he was on defense, but again, remember, he hits back whenever he's hit. That's just automatic. It's part of his brand, and it's part of why people like him, the people who do. But at this point, he clearly has the superior argument because we know more than we knew before. So at this point, it's all offense, and you can't fault him for offense. Do you think Godzilla is behind the Miss Piggy ordeal? No, I don't. And you know why I don't? Because I think it's below him. I think it's just, I don't think it would pass his ethical standard. That's just a guess. I mean, I don't know him personally, but based on writing, based on the fact he's an academic, I just don't think it would pass his ethical standard. At least I hope not. Let's move on to something else. What else do you want to talk about? Where's Assange? I think Assange has nothing. I don't think there's anything coming from WikiLeaks that will surprise us. Godzilla is my name for Robert Cialdini, who I have hypothesized is working to help the Clinton campaign as an advisor. He's a cognitive scientist type, wrote the book Influence, and would be the best in the world, I think, in knowing how to influence people. He worked on the Obama campaign, and he declines to comment whether he's working with Hillary. The bad polls. Yeah, there's a lot of bad online polls and bullshit. By the way, I tweeted yesterday, did you see the S&P 500? So when it seemed that Clinton won the debate, it popped up. If you look at the chart from the 26th was the debate, it just goes zoop up. And people said, hey, that must be because the stock market wants Hillary Clinton. But it's already back down. Bing. So that bump didn't last very long. You might also see a little bit of bump in the polls because of the debate and because people think Clinton won. But by now, the Miss Piggy thing has just driven it down to the headlines, and we're on to something else. So I think whatever bump she got is probably already over. Oh, and by the way, if any of you are following the state-by-state electoral college results, can you fact-check me? I'm gonna make a claim, but I'm asking you to fact-check it, because I'm not following those polls as closely. Here's my claim. Donald Trump is within 1% of a landslide in the Electoral College already. Is that true or false? Because it seems to me that he's now ahead in most of the battleground states, and that's exactly where you need to be ahead to get a landslide. And I think Florida is is a tie, and Pennsylvania even is within 2%. If he were to switch 1% from the other side to his side, that creates a 2% swing. All right, 1% from their side added to his side, it's a 2% swing, and he's within 2% in Pennsylvania. So 2% plus one voter, he wins fucking Pennsylvania, Florida, Colorado, and all the other swing states, right? And the other ones he's already ahead. So, but I'm right? That he's already within 1% of a landslide? And how is that not the headline? Because, not really, landslide is 370. Well, but a big win, right? Oh, Florida and Pennsylvania are way worse for him today? Is there some new polls out today? Chinese with Kristina tonight? It's possible. Do the Hitler downfall parodies? I don't know what that is. Trump is winning the early voting in Florida? Do we really know that? All right, so my point is, if he gets within 1% of winning it big, is there any possibility at all that the shy Trump supporter effect is not at least 1%? So here's the thing. You could argue that the shy Trump supporter effect is not gigantic. So you could say, nah, it's not 10% of the voters. We'd know that. It's not even 5% of the voters. We would certainly know that. In fact, it's not even 3% of the voters. We would know that. That would sort of show up in the numbers in some indirect way. But if it were 1%, just 1% of the voters, would we know? And ask around, how many people don't admit that they're Trump supporters? Looks like more than 1% to me. So I might be wrong, and again, you have to adjust for the fact that there might be a little bump right after the debates. I would expect the bumping to start moving the other direction after the second and third debate, because Trump set the bar again so low that how in the hell doesn't he do better in the second debate? I mean, think about it. Try to imagine the second debate and imagine that Trump doesn't do better. Because the stuff he did well, he can do by reflex. Everything he said that did well was sort of the stuff he already says in his stump speech and everything else. The things that tripped him up, he'll be ready for. Right? I mean, how could it go any other way? And then Clinton was really good from beginning to end, but she was good in her, Clinton kind of a style. There's not much place for that to go. So even if she beat him again, it's going to look like he did a lot better. And then not so much bump. So I say that we're within 1% of something that's either a huge electoral college win for Trump, or perhaps even a landslide. And I think we're already there. I think if nothing changed and the vote were today, that at least 1% of the voters are shy Trump supporters, and I think it's already a landslide. Does anybody disagree with that? What about this non-existent voter fraud? Yeah, there will be some voter fraud. Is the third debate the only one that matters? That very well may be the case. Who are some master persuaders worth knowing? I need to put a list together of that. I would add Peggy Noonan to the list, and I would add, I can never remember her name. Who's the author of the Harry Potter series? For whatever reason, I can never remember her name, but she's definitely a master persuader. Ah, yes, Rowling. If you look at her choice of words, and yeah, Mark Twain, I would add him to the list. I would add all the founding fathers. You can't talk to them, unfortunately. I guess we don't say founding fathers anymore. Now we just say the founders. Is that correct? Gorka? I don't know, maybe. Don't know about him. Reagan, well, Reagan's speechwriter was Peggy Noonan, right? What about Nassim? I don't know if he would qualify as a master persuader. He's sort of a master logician. He's sort of a master thinker, master intellectual. I've said this before, but there's a very small list of people who, if they were to disagree with me on anything important, I would immediately think I was wrong. Instead of, the normal thing is when people disagree with you, you just assume they're wrong, and then you tell them why they're wrong, even if you're the one that's wrong. But with this very small group of people, and Taleb is one of them, I would put Penn Jillette in that category. I would put Sam Harris in that category. When they disagree with you, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, holy shit, what did I do wrong? When people that smart disagree with you, you really have to you have to wonder. Now, Sam Harris and I have different opinions on Donald Trump, as some of you know, and people have been eager to put us in the same room. But here's the thing. I'll bet if you put us in the same room, we wouldn't disagree as much as you think. Sam Harris may have a preference for someone who's not Donald Trump, but I'll bet if we talked on a detailed level, you wouldn't find as many things to disagree with as you think. Yeah, Milo, who's sort of disappeared now that he's off of Twitter. Milo is more of an intellectual, although he can be very persuasive as well. Yeah, Milo's kind of an interesting intellectual because he's so provocative. Justin Bieber. Yeah, Tony Robbins is on the list of persuaders. Why is it that everybody wants to hear me talk to Sam Harris so much, more than anyone else? My guess is this, is that if you're a Trump supporter, you're having the same problem that I just mentioned, is that you look at Sam Harris, and here's one of the most rational, smartest people you'll ever meet. Well, I've never met him, but if you've read any of his books, you've seen him interviewed, clearly he's sort of a level above the average pundit, the average person you see on television, etc. So when he disagrees with you, and he disagrees with many of you on the risks and benefits of a Trump presidency, when he disagrees with you, it makes you question your own judgment, doesn't it? And so the reason you want me to talk to Sam Harris is that you think I could change his mind, or at least show you an argument at the same time that would allow you to keep your current view and not have to descend into cognitive dissonance. Because the worst thing would be if you kept your current view of Trump while at the same time listening to Sam Harris with a good argument about why you shouldn't, and it makes sense. That would be a psychologically uncomfortable situation. So you imagine that I could fix that for you by talking to Sam Harris in some kind of recorded way in which you imagine that the things I say will give you comfort in your cognitive dissonance. And you're totally right, because if he and I had that conversation, that's exactly what would happen. Bill Maher, comedy, laughter equals cognitive dissonance. Well, laughter can be a tell for cognitive dissonance, but of course, sometimes laughter is just laughter. Go on the Joe Rogan podcast. That's not up to me. I'm pretty sure that's up to Joe Rogan. But I would go on if he invited me. I would fly down there to do his show, and it's hard to get me out of the house, but I would definitely do Joe Rogan's show. His stance on Islam and anti-Trump is cognitive dissonance. No, it really isn't. See, because here's the thing, we just don't live in a one-variable world. And one of the reasons you think Sam Harris's opinion matters is that he knows we don't live in a one-variable world. It's just not about one fucking thing. Every big decision is about a whole bunch of variables. And if you can't hold them all in your head and sort of weigh them as some kind of a weighted average, you're not really doing anything that's similar to thinking. How will the election affect Dilbert strip in the future? Good question. I have been avoiding checking my online Dilbert comic stats to check the traffic, because the way this normally would work, let me just predict. On my blog, my traffic is way up, but that's because I've attracted a lot of Trump supporters in particular. Now, they're not likely to stick around after the election because I won't be talking about election stuff forever. So the ones I've gained are not likely to stick around. The people who were everyday Dilbert readers, who were going to just the comic on my website and didn't care about the blog at all, didn't even know it existed maybe, those folks are bailing out, because when you associate with somebody that they don't like, they say, hey, you must be on the other side where you're having dinner with Paul Watson, huh? They bail out. So what I would guess is that my comic part of my website is probably down and will always be down. So that will be a permanent reduction in my income, and substantially, I would imagine. Whereas the uptick, which I'm enjoying right now, so right now, at the moment, my website ad revenue is at an all-time high. But I think what's driving that is the blog, because the blog is at multiples of where it's ever been. But that's not going to stay. Right after the election, that will go back to where it was, its baseline, maybe a little bit bigger. But the blog is a small part of my revenue. Was it worth it? I got to tell you, I'm having the best year of my whole life. And that's true. This year has been intellectually, physically, emotionally, even, financially, it's been pretty good. Just on every level, I've had the most fantastic year. Plus, I discovered I'm an amazing neighbor. So, pretty much everything's going my way. By the way, if you've heard me talk about my neighbor, Kristina, she and I are going to take a trip next week to London and Zurich. She's an experienced international traveler, and I've never done anything beyond Canada and Mexico, Costa Rica once. So she offered to be my London guide because she's spent a ton of time there for business. So we coordinated our trips. And we'll be there at the same time, and she'll show me the city. Yeah, you really do. I got the best neighbor ever. Zurich is fantastic. You people are terrible. You're terrible. Well, if you saw Kristina's website I sent you to, you know that she's way too young for somebody like me. So Kristina has a boyfriend and I have a girlfriend, but they're both totally cool with this because, why wouldn't they if you've seen our age difference? How would anybody be worried? How does my girlfriend feel about it? She's totally on board. Look at, can you imagine that I would be with this young international model? It sounds crazy. You go to her name, Kristina Basham, B as in boy, A-S-H-A-M, M as in Mary, KristinaBasham.com. You all can what? Is your girlfriend Kristina's mom? I've met her mom. She's very nice. Yeah, Kristina was in Hawaii recently too. I've won you for life. Yay, stick around. She's a combination of several exotic things. I think about 5 different things. Can I hypnotize her? I have periscoped with Kristina, and she's comfortable on camera, but not everybody is comfortable being on camera. Some people like to be behind the scenes. How did I cope with losing friends? I think that if somebody becomes not your friend for a specific reason, that's easier to cope with because you can just look at the reason. Following me since the newsletter. Wow. Dogbert's new rule in class. Have you ever hypnotized anyone for nefarious reasons? Well, isn't nefarious kind of a judgment call? So take this ambiguous situation. Let's say there was someone who was not attracted to you, and then you used your hypnosis skills, if you had hypnosis skills, to cause them to be attracted to you. Would you call that a nefarious situation? Because everyone's trying to do that all the time. They just don't have as much skill. So I would look at that as someone who's good at it versus people who are not good at it. But everybody's trying to influence. You're influencing by the things you say. Did you bring flowers? Did you go to the gym and pump up your muscles so you can influence people to like you? Every one of us is in this 24-hour, full-time battle of persuasion. We're trying to convince ourselves of things. We're trying to convince our loved ones of things, our customers, our boss. We are trying to persuade everyone all the time. And most of it is for nefarious reasons. If you think about it, we're trying to make money for ourselves, usually at someone else's expense, the customer's expense, for example, who could have bought maybe the same product cheaper down the road. You just didn't mention it to them. We're trying to have sex with people who probably would be better off having sex with other people. If you think about it, you're not the best person in the world. There's probably a better option than you. So almost everything we do is nefarious and selfish. Right? Because we're selfish people. So do you blame somebody who just does it better? Right? That's one of my filters on Trump. When people say, hey, Trump is a con man, he's just a snake oil salesman, that Donald Trump is just a big old liar, and all the other things they say about him, when I read that stuff, I say to myself, compared to the politician who doesn't lie, the politician who isn't trying to manipulate you, the politician who doesn't have any selfish impulses, which politician is that? Have you ever seen that person? No. The only thing that bothers you about Trump is he's fucking better at it. He's just way better at influencing people. Way better. I mean, it's flamethrower at a stick fight type of stuff. He's in a whole different league. That's why he's where he is. With no political experience whatsoever, he just swept aside the entire GOP challengers, and he's 1% away from winning the general election in a frickin' landslide. Right? So he does it really well, persuasion. Do we blame him for doing what we're doing every day? Every day in every context, we're selling ourselves. Sell, sell, sell. We're selling ourselves to ourselves. We're selling ourselves to other people, our loved ones. He just does it really well. Do you hate him for that? All right, you could hate him for his policies and everything. I don't agree with all of his policies, but you can't hate him for being effective at the thing that he's literally in a contest of people trying to persuade. If you're better at it than the other people in the contest, that doesn't make you an asshole. That makes you someone who's winning a contest. All right, that's enough ranting. I'm not really following Obama and giving the internet away. Why does your egg get bigger and smaller? That's a good question. Would he be less persuasive if he were bald? It's possible. It's not crazy that he keeps his hair cut. All right. At this point, it's a brand. It does make him interesting. It makes him impossible to not look at. I mean, I can't take my eyes off him because I'm just looking at his hair the whole time. That's true. Is being a good persuader like being physically stronger and beating up somebody? No! That's about the most opposite things you could ever have. Beating somebody up versus convincing them to do something? That's pretty different. There's a line, Scott. No, there's not a line. There is not a line for persuasion. There is a distinction between persuading for the purpose of your own good and not for the good of the other person. That's a line, but there is no such thing as a line for how good you are at persuading. For example, if I'm trying to persuade the country to, let's say, do something that's just good for it, go to a war that it needs to go to war. It's an existential risk to the whole world or at least the country if you don't go to war. You got to talk people into it, right? And if you're doing that, you're probably always on the side of good, no matter how well you do it. But if your whole point of persuading is just to take people's money, well then yes. Do I look weird on acid? Are you on acid now? I hope you are, because that would be awesome. I lost a friend over this election. I'll bet most of you Trump supporters have. I have. Hitler didn't think to. Hitler also liked water, yeah. So let's talk about Hitler. So I put together a list. I'm going to sign on my computer here while we're talking. Don't listen to my keystrokes. And I'm going to go to my photos where I've been saving. I hope it's probably hasn't synced yet. Yeah. Can somebody tell me what is up with stupid Apple that I take pictures and they don't sync until they feel like it? Because I would be reading something very clever to you now. Oops, here we go. A little syncing going on. So I was going to read to you the tweets that are coming into me. You're down 600 Facebook friends. Well, you know, I said a couple of things about Trump on Facebook. I think I just maybe forwarded some news article about me or something. And things got a lot quieter in my social life, let me say that. Mark Cuban says Trump has damaged his brand. Trump's own brand or I don't know which brand he damaged. I think Mark Cuban damaged his own brand. For sure. All right. I'm going to open some of these and then, oh, okay, we can do this. All right, here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm not going to read your comments for a minute because I'm going to be reading. So I collected up the tweets from people who said that they were harassed for being Trump supporters, all right? So I'm just going to read these. These are people who were harassed for being Trump supporters, and I'll just go through them. It says, Goldman Sachs employee, here, each member of a unit team called before manager and asked if voting for Trump. So that's chilling. Your boss asks you who you're voting for. Had to take the Trump sticker off my car because I had my windows broken in 3 times. I live in Manhattan and I got mocked and insulted for wearing my Trump hat. My dad was almost punched in California. Disowned by my family, berated constantly for supporting Trump. A woman told me to take this Trump sticker off my car or she would take my head off. Kicked my car door and told me to go back to my double-wide trailer. And she notes that she has a 3-bedroom house in a wealthy suburb. Wore a Trump hat and was verbally accosted twice. Oh, here's I'm going to turn around my camera for a minute. If you didn't see this on my Twitter feed, you probably can't see it now. It looks like it's, if you look down here, this is the day, this is the S&P 500, and on the 26th, which you can barely see, the stock market was lowish, and then when Clinton was said to have won the first debate, it zoomed up. But more lately, zoom back down. So, if Clinton is the one that Wall Street loves, why didn't the stock market go up and stay up if they were pretty sure she won that debate and she was going to go on to win it all? I think Wall Street's not so decided, or they don't think this election is decided. All right, so let me keep going. I'm reading Trump. Problems that people had for supporting Trump. This person tweeted, I've had people call my family members who escaped Nazi Germany actual Nazis. So these are people who escaped Nazi Germany, and they're actually being called Nazis. And they tell me I'm a Nazi for hating Trump. Someone tried to run down my sign, hit a mailbox, and wrecked his car. Someone dug hard, finding my identity, and attempted to screw my business relationships with disinformation to my peers. These are all Trump supporters who are harassed. Someone yelled, "Fuck Trump" at me as I walked in a theme park. I got spit on for wearing a Trump hat. I have been threatened. I have been called coon, Uncle Tom, N-word, traitor by tolerant liberals. This is an African-American man who's saying this. My friend's 10-year-old daughter was attacked by a mob yelling Nazi, bitch, etc., snatched her Trump sign and ripped it up. I've been physically intimidated for voting for supporting Trump. Yes, hateful screaming Hillary crowd rushed us coming out of a Trump event. A large police force saved us. Here's what I liked. Listen to this one. Some of you saw this on Twitter. Drove down to New Orleans for lunch and jazz. Midway into our meal, the owner of the jazz club came to our table and asked us to leave, both of us wearing Trump t-shirts. Owner said shirts were racist. Jazz club very crowded. 3/4 of the people in there were black. We were going to finish our meal and leave. Owner started to protest. He wanted us to pay for our half-eaten meal and leave now. A black woman overheard the owner and stepped up to our table with 4 or 5 others and started yelling at the owner saying, "That ain't right. You can't do that. Those shirts ain't hurting nobody." A lot of people saying they just want to give those people who stepped in a big old hug. I second that. So I got a hug for you guys if you need one. Can attest. Watched a guy try to take his hat and assault him at a bar in D.C. Luckily, security intervened, saved this guy from getting hurt. I was threatened at an RNC event and regularly about once a weekend when I donned my Trump hat and attire in D.C. Yes, verbally. The left angry. Yes. I've been threatened for being a Trump supporter and not even American. Yes, once at a rally, I won. Apparently got into a fight and won. I was on a train in the UK recently. A guy said I ought to be stabbed for wearing my Trump t-shirt. Now that's a case of Clinton's bad work, creating an environment where people feel morally justified for violence against Trump supporters. I have been for wearing a Trump shirt, so I showed my sidearm. They left me alone. This is a woman, by the way. So a woman tweeted that she showed her concealed carry, and that solved the situation. You know, this shit's going to turn ugly pretty soon, but so far it seems that the Trump supporters are mostly carrying guns for self-defense. I was stuck in my car after the Trump rally, unable to move, while unruly thugs jumped on my car, threw rocks, and blocked the freeway. A friend, this is another one, a friend attempted via Facebook, tried to shame me out of voting for Trump. Had to take my sign out of the window after crazy attacked my car. My car got keyed up the day after I put on the Trump bumper sticker. I've been threatened plenty of times. My boss said she would fire anyone who supported Trump. I was threatened and assaulted on school campus. Been called racist by lifelong friends and had my Facebook shut down for posting Trump memes. I live in Boston area and get threatened whenever I wear my Trump hat. I had a Trump shirt on. A lady got out of her car to yell at me and call me an asshole. I just laughed, which angered her. I was assaulted by a crowd of protesters outside a Trump rally. They drew blood and knocked me to the ground. If that happened to you, wouldn't you apply for a concealed carry weapon the next day? I mean, it's a Trump supporter, so he probably has one already, but, all right. So those are the ones I've collected so far. I just did this late yesterday. Yeah, I was planning on posting them. I just got to find some time to collect them all up. She started shaking. Yeah, so that's the behavior I've seen. I've seen people actually physically. So these people who are doing the yelling and attacking and the assaults, if you look at them, they're actually in a crazed, they're in sort of a manic, crazed state. Even their eyes aren't, if you look at their eyes, they're like, and they're actually literally shaking. And I mean this I'm not talking figuratively. I mean they actually shake. You can see their hands shaking. So the reason is that either with the help of Godzilla or not, the Clinton team has successfully convinced their sheep that that Trump is literally Hitler, or the second coming. And that makes it morally and ethically okay to imagine violence against him and his supporters. So the irony, of course, is that if you were to say, what is more Hitler-like? Is it more Hitler-like to wear a shirt or a hat that supports your candidate because you like, immigration policies and lower taxes or whatever it is you like about him? Or is it more Hitler-like to intimidate citizens of your own country and to ostracize them and to single them out for special violent treatment, special economic harm, special ostracism? And this is an honest question. I'm not even asking this for purely political means. I'm just asking you, if you were to say what is more Hitler-like, is it that behavior or is it the actual attacking? Yeah, so Clinton can't really run on a record of accomplishment. She can run on her experience, but even that, people say, yeah, you got lots of experience. It's all bad experience. So that's sort of vulnerable. So her only, it's a dangerous situation if you think about it. The only way that Clinton can win is by convincing half of the country that we're actually in the middle of a Nazi uprising. Now, how dangerous is that? I mean, think about it. How dangerous is it to convince, and actually effectively convince, half of the country that they're right in the middle of a Nazi revolution? Like, that's the movie playing in half of the country's head right now. So you and I are saying, hey, this was a fun year. I sure like these Trump memes. I hope we can do something about taxes. And yeah, we'd like a little extra rigor in our vetting of immigration and those things. That's all you're thinking. You're thinking, I sure would like a job, or maybe you're thinking, I don't want, Clinton to extend this administration. You're thinking stuff like that. The other side has a different movie playing in their head. In their movie, they're actually actors in a play, or a movie, let's call it, in which they're in the middle of an actual revolution by Nazis. And they're feeling like, hey, in my movie, my illusion, where the country is being taken over by Nazis, I have to act. Because think about it, you've been trained since you were a kid that you can't stand by idly while, Hitler rises. Because when that happened last time, we all regretted it, right? We all said, well, they're not coming for us, right? If they're not coming for us, I guess it's okay. So you've got a whole country full of people who think that if they've been convinced that somebody's coming for them, or some group of them, that they can organize. But indeed, if you look at everything Trump has said about this election anyway, he's never targeted anybody in the United States, except professionals and reporters and stuff like that. But, people who are in the cage fight with him, like so-called Miss Piggy, she's actually a political operative at this point. So he goes hard at the political people, but that's what we expect, right? That's what we like about him. He goes hard at people who are hard enough, who can take care of themselves, basically. But Clinton actually goes after American citizens, and I'm one of them. So I feel I'm in the class of people who a potential next president of the United States would consider me an enemy. You think about that. I wake up every day and go to work to make money that I will never personally spend. It's all for the benefit of someone else, other people in the country primarily. I literally spend every day trying to figure out something I can do that day that would make the world a better place. all right? And usually most of what I do has that at least intention. Now, you don't see it all because you only see what I do in public, right? But what you don't know is that most of my life is organized toward making the world a better place because I'm in a position where I can do that. I have leverage, I have resources, I have fuck you money, so I can take some risks that people can't take. I can invest in things that people who couldn't afford to lose won't do. So my whole life is organized toward just making this fucking country a little bit better, making things a little bit better for you people, who are watching this. I don't get paid for this. I do this every day because it's good for people, I think, to see different perspectives. The more opinions you hear, the richer your experience is, the more tools you have to call upon when you decide to make up your own mind. So almost everything I do is for the benefit of America and the world at large. And obviously it's not a one variable world. I do things that are good for me too. I do things that are good for my family and loved ones. But what do I get for that? I get called a deplorable by my own potential leader, the leader of my own country. I get up every fucking day and try to make this country better. Literally. I mean, I work pretty hard at making this country a better fucking place. And the potential leader of the country thinks I'm an asshole. Think about that, right? And how about the rest of you Trump supporters? Clinton and her supporters have tarred you as being either white trash, trailer park, fucking idiots, or some kind of deplorable racist Nazis. But you know what you really do? Most of you wake up and go to work. Most of you take care of your family. Most of you are taking care of like an elderly relative who needs something. Most of you are helping somebody who, let me give you this example. Truck breaks down on the side of the road. Not truck. Let's say a car breaks down on the side of the road, or there's an accident or something. Car catches on fire. There's somebody trapped in the burning car. All right? And that's all you know. I'm telling you a made-up story. There's somebody trapped in a burning car on a highway. Somebody stops, reaches in there, gets burned in the process, but pulls that person out of the car. Are they more likely to be a Trump supporter or a Clinton supporter? You already fucking know the answer to that question, right? The Trump supporters actually just want to make this country a little better place. Sure, some of them are racist. There's no question about that. Some of Clinton's supporters are in prison. There's no question about that. Some of Clinton's supporters are racist too. No question about that, all right? We're a big country full of people who are deeply flawed, just trying to get better. That's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to get a little better. We have this candidate, Trump, who offers the opportunity for what I'd call a big change. Clinton offers either no change or small changes. And there are a lot of people who are saying to get better faster, we probably need a big change. So here's the thing. I'm right on the edge right now. I've been trying to stay a little bit neutral, right? I want to be as objective as possible. Obviously, I've said more good things about Trump than about Hillary, but I've also said great things about Hillary, and I'll say a few more right now. She is one spunky motherfucker. I mean, I think she's sick, and she's still pushing through. So if you were to say, who has guts, who's brave, who's really fucking smart, who's got tons of experience, who has already broken the glass ceiling for women, I would say, because whether or not Clinton gets elected, there's nobody in the country who thinks that a woman, won't or can't be president and wouldn't do a good job if it's the right person. Like that's just gone. That's history now. All the Trump supporters are on that page. There's nobody who doesn't think that a woman can't be president. That's all Clinton. Clinton did all of that. All right, give her credit, right? She's brilliant. She's experienced. Spunky as a motherfucker. All right, she's totally got the guts, right? And she's already broken the glass ceiling. That's a lot. That's a lot of good stuff. So give her some credit. But whether or not she's the person to be your president, you got to look at the full picture, right? And right now she has demonized something like a third of the country, and apparently I'm in that basket of deplorables just by association. And you have to ask yourself if that's the country you want to live in. All right. I think there were real worries that, Trump's rhetoric would create a bad situation in the United States for either legal Muslim residents or for African Americans or something. I don't know. Even though Trump wasn't saying anything along those lines, he was saying nothing about people who are here legally and their residents. But I think she's crossed the line now. I think when your leader turns on a third of its own citizens for essentially thought crimes or for wanting to fix the country in a slightly different way, that you can't treat that as business as usual, because it's not. Right? It's just not business as usual. Deploribus unum. Did you make that up? Deploribus unum is fucking great. I like puns more than the most people, but that is a really good one. Deploribus unum. All right, if that's not already a meme, it needs to be. Will she be able to accept losing the election? Yes, because I think she wants to lose the election. I think she wants to. She would win if it were an option. But I don't think she's terribly healthy, and I don't think her husband's looking too good. And they're both at that age where even if they are healthy, it's probably not going to last very long. So, I'm not sure she wants to be president. I think she wants to prove that nothing stopped her, and she was knocking on the door at the very least. Because, like I say, if she drops out, then I think you could argue she didn't break the glass ceiling. But if she stays in and loses even in a landslide, she did, right? Then you can say glass ceiling is gone. I don't think there's any second grader who's born today, or second grader born today. There's nobody born today who's going to go through life thinking that a woman can't be president. It's just over, right? So she did that. Any stories of you persuading people to Trump? Just anecdotal stuff where people stop me and say, hey, what do you think? And I can watch their minds being changed as I talk. So I'd say 2 or 3 situations I could think of where they probably changed their vote after they walked away. God loves me. I need all the help I can get. Well, governor's different than president. I persuaded you. What would it take to change your vote? I don't vote. Will I join his campaign? It's not up to me, is it? What if you were wrong? About what? Anything? Everything? Imagine New York a red state. Well, that's a stretch. Change your mind. Have you ever voted? Yes, I did. I once voted for, I'm not going to tell you who I voted for. Will you Periscope from London? Yes, I will. I'll be in London with my awesome neighbor, best neighbor ever. I think we'll both Periscope from there. And I haven't decided yet, but I might either Snapchat or Instagram also from London when I get there. Don't get beheaded. I don't see Trump winning California or New York. Will I lose half of my viewers? Yeah, maybe. I drain your battery every morning. I don't think I'll tell you who I voted for. The LA Times. I'm not sure the Wait, is the LA Times, that's that USC poll, right? I'm not sure that one's the most reliable one. I grew up in Windham, New York. I'm going to define landslide as big enough victory that people will call it a landslide. Right? So it's a subjective thing, right? But if people on both sides, and I think that's the key, if the only people saying landslide are the Trump supporters if they win, then I'm not sure that qualifies. But a landslide would be a landslide if the other side says it's a landslide. Delusional, aren't we all? Yeah, one of Trump's biggest drawbacks is he speaks like a New Yorker. I've said this before. I'm from upstate New York, and you've heard me on this Periscope, right? I swear like a wounded pirate who lost his parrot, and that's sort of a New York thing. We swear a lot from that state. It's probably the biggest cursing state in the whole union. Maybe not. There may be some state where people curse more. But in my mind, I imagine that in the South, people are a little more refined. And I imagine in the Midwest, people are just nicer. And then in California and the West Coast, there's a lot of, political correctness. So for slightly different reasons, most of the country is a little bit more polite than people from New York. And we also have a habit of saying what's on our mind. That's very New York. All right? Other people don't do that. Massholes. What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. So it's not a universal truth, but people from New York definitely like to swear, and we like to make references to violence that we don't mean, like, hey, I'm going to punch that guy in the nose. He needs a bullet in his head, It's just the way New Yorkers talk. Italian. I'm not Italian, but I think, there may be I like my cursors. I don't think Trump is close in New York, is he? Have you seen the Can't Stump Trump videos? No. People send me so many videos, I just can't watch them all. That's all I would do. Well, let me tell you. Yeah, Cialdini said he wouldn't comment on a political campaign while it's ongoing. Well, let me ask you this. If you were not working for the Clinton campaign and people kept asking you, are you working for the Clinton campaign? Would you say, if this were you and you were not working for the Clinton campaign or the Trump campaign, wouldn't you say, yeah, I'm not involved? Wouldn't you? Or would you? UK supported Trump, South England, they hate him. I'm not sure why in the United States, one of the things we never understand is why people in other countries are following our politics. Sure, I get it. The United States is a big dog and what we do affects everyone else, but it's hard for us to internalize. Gay Johnson, I worked with Gay Johnson. How do you know Gay Johnson? True story, the person you just mentioned, her first name is Gay, which probably people don't name their kids Gay anymore. She and I were salad choppers at the Sugar Maples Resort in Maple Crest, New York. And we would stand shoulder to shoulder with these big-ass knives, chopping gigantic heads of lettuce for the hundreds of people coming in to eat that day. We were salad choppers. Yep. Two curved hollow fangs. What? No, we didn't toss the salad. I'm not going to be able to talk about that just yet. Yeah. It's funny, Cialdini's found 100 ways to confirm that he's working for Clinton without actually saying he's working for Clinton. Would I advise Trump? You know, it's a tricky question, because if someone who is the president or is likely to be a president asks you for advice and you're an American citizen, you know, do you say no? I mean, he hasn't asked. I don't expect him to. You know, it seems to me everyone is advising Trump. Every time you turn on the TV, there's someone, a pundit, saying, if only Trump, it's new, the new cottage industry is people publicly telling Trump what they should have done or should do, and if he just does that, he's definitely going to win. And they're not all the same, right? They all have a slightly different take on it. But people are quite sure that if Trump does what they say this time, will my girlfriend understand if I... I think anyone would understand that. Have you seen her? His brain must be ready to explode. Huffington Post. God, they're going hard at this Hitler thing. Kellyanne got the boot. That didn't happen, did it? They're all biased. All right. Why is Trump talking about her? What should Trump do at the next debate? Just better. I think Newt Gingrich was giving this public advice, which it's not like you have to give him this advice. It's the most obvious thing in the world. I took something called media training, which is literally an expert sits with you and says, hey, your career means you're going to be on TV a lot. So when my first book came out, and it looked like it was going to be big, the first non-Dilbert book, The Dilbert Principle, which was sort of Dilbert. When that came out, my publisher hired a media, was it my publisher? Yeah, or my syndicate, hired a media expert to come tell me how to talk to the media. And the basic idea is that when the media asks you a question, you just ignore it and say whatever the hell you want to say, instead of defending the question or arguing about the question. And I saw Gingrich saying Trump should have done the same thing when they said, hey, how about this birther thing? That you dismiss it with one sentence and then you talk about whatever you want to talk. So the way that goes is, hey, Trump, why'd you wait so long with this birther stuff? And then what you're supposed to do, if you have media training, is you say, well, you know, I'm glad we put that to bed. But what really matters is these 10 scandals from Hillary Clinton. And then you use up your time talking about the bad things she did. So that's just standard advice. Trump doesn't do that and never has. Instead, he answers the actual question like a real person would. You know, a real person, you ask them a question and they address the question, which it turns out is a terrible mistake when you're having a debate in public. But at the same time, he's being sort of honest, which is he has an opinion about these things he's being attacked on. He wants to defend himself. It's hard to hate somebody who wants to defend himself against an injustice as he sees it, right? If you think it's not an injustice, you see it a different way. Yeah, it goes down the rabbit hole. So the real problem is it takes too long. So let me give you an example of how I would have handled the birther question if I were in the debate and I knew it was coming. So this is the sort of thing you can't do unless you know it's coming, but he should have known it was coming. So let's say I'm Donald Trump and somebody says to you, hey, you know, why did it take so long between the time that the birth certificate was produced and the time that you declared that Obama was really born in this country? Why did it take so long? 2 years or longer, whatever it was. Here's how I would answer that. I would say, honestly, it was wishful thinking. Here I'm talking in a hypothetical Trump voice as if I'm being asked the question. I would say it was really wishful thinking because Obama's policy were destroying the country. And we live in a world where even something like a document can't be credible. In the real world, the world that you voters live in, an official government document probably means exactly what it says. But in my world, emails disappear. In the world of politics, emails disappear, and charitable foundations are just the front for influence peddling, and nothing is what it seems. So to you, a government document, a birth certificate, is really 100% certainty of an answer. But in the world I live in the world of politics, nothing is ever 100%. But that said, I definitely waited too long. I had a little bit of wishful thinking that the situation might be interpreted a little differently, and that there was a chance to help the country by removing Obama from office a little bit early. But now, and then the follow-up question is, well, why now? Now why are you saying that he is a citizen? And I would say, now it doesn't matter. Now he's already out of office. All right? So the danger 2 years ago is that we would have 2 more years of Obama. The danger now is gone. He's not really going to change much in the next few months, and the problem is behind us. So with the permission of the voters, I'd like to put it behind me too, which is a very important statement. Listen to this. With the permission of the voters, I'd like to put it behind me too. Because once it was important, and I admit it was wishful thinking that we could find a way to remove him from office before he did more damage. But now that time is gone. Now it's time to move on. We're in a different chapter now. So with the permission of the voters, I'd like to move on. So it's a really powerful line. Absolutely terrible answer. What was terrible about it? By the way, I don't expect Trump to say anything like that. I'm just saying that, if you're prepared for a certain question, there's almost always a way you can answer it that will be satisfying for the viewers. You just have to be ready for it. Any law that stops you from doing good? There's no law. I don't understand the context of that question. You would have been interrupted by Holt before the point was made. No, I wouldn't have, because I would be answering the question directly. You get interrupted when you avoid the question. You don't get interrupted when you specifically answer it, and that was a pretty specific answer. And who hates somebody who is trying to save the country and confesses to a little bit of wishful thinking? Do I ever drink alcohol? I do not. Why do you ask that? I stopped drinking alcohol a few years ago, originally just because I was having some sinus problems when I drank, and it was unpleasant. But, oh my God, did it change my life. You end up having to change your friends, because I realized that all of my friends had organized their lives around excuses for getting drunk. So it turns out that all of my friends are alcoholics, or not all of them, only 80% of them. And once you stop organizing your life around excuses to drink, you have to change everything in your life. You need new friends, new entertainment, new everything. But oh my God, I'm healthier. Just that one day a week where you drink too much and oversleep and get dehydrated and you can't work out effectively the next day and you got a headache, and even though for me typically it was never more than one day a week and I rarely got super drunk, I could tell that it was just killing my health. So I now regard alcohol as just poison. It's just an attractive poison. I didn't see Snowden recently. Alcohol is sort of literally poison, yeah. Jenkum? No, I have not. All right, I think I've done enough for today. This should give you enough marijuanas. Marijuana is apparently the healthiest thing that has ever been created. People keep asking me, what are the health benefits of marijuana? Let me list just a few. Number one, it makes you less tense. right? If you do the right kind and at the right times. And tension, we know, is like, the biggest problem people have at a certain age. So tension affects a whole host of physical problems. So you take away the tension, there's a whole bunch of things that don't happen. Marijuana is also an anti-inflammatory. So it's a general body anti-inflammatory. So it fixes everything from aches and pains, which allows you to exercise more effectively because you just don't get sore. But it also, and here, don't take this as medical advice, by the way. Let me jump in and say everybody should ignore anything that sounds like medical advice. I'm not giving you that. I'm just telling you stuff I hear in the headlines. So there are some people who found relief from asthma because it's an anti-inflammatory, marijuana is, and that when your lungs are anti-inflamed, I guess, you can breathe better. It dries up your body, so it essentially gets rid of your allergies. If you had a runny nose and you're sneezing all the time, if you're a chronic pot user, it just goes away. Even things that your regular meds can't take care of, just takes care of it. You just don't get a runny nose if you're stoned. So there's sleep apnea, it takes care of. It reduces your feeling of pain. It lets you sleep better. It allows you to enjoy whatever food you have, so you don't have to go after. I'll check my email and look for that invite to Berkeley. I probably would do that. So imagine a person who has no inflammation in their body, low stress, lower blood pressure. They sleep well, and they exercise more, and they can eat healthy food because everything tastes good, so you don't have to worry about, eating just the stuff that tastes good because you need a little extra pleasure. Let's see, their sex life improves vastly. Their enjoyment of life improves. Other people get along with them better because people who are stoned are just friendlier. They're not tense and they're just easier to be with. So your social life improves, or could. I suppose it could get worse too, but potentially it could improve. And then you get all the benefits of a good social life, which is the oxytocin and all of those things, which we know to have, enormous health benefits. So I heard somebody say, and I love this thought, that if you had never heard of marijuana and it were discovered today, right? No, it didn't exist, and it got discovered for the first time in 2016, and then scientists went and studied it and found out all the things it did, which are the things I just mentioned. Not only would it not be illegal, it might be mandatory. Think about it. All right, I'm going to take off. I've got to do some work. See you guys later.